Let us begin with a harsh but liberating truth. If you are consistently dealing with toxic people, the problem is not just them. It is you for allowing them continued access to your life, your energy, and your peace. This is not a statement of blame, but one of radical empowerment. Because the moment you accept this, the moment you realize that you are the gatekeeper of your own life, you stop being a victim and you start becoming the architect of your own tranquility. Toxic people do not just appear out of nowhere, they thrive in the cracks of our boundaries. They feed off our reactions, our desire to be polite, and our misguided hope that we can somehow fix them. Most people let them wreak havoc for years, too afraid to confront the hard reality that you cannot change them. But you can outsmart them. We are raised on stories of redemption of love, conquering all of the power of patience and understanding to heal a broken person. This fosters a dangerous belief that it is our noble duty to endure disrespect, to absorb negativity, and to offer endless second chances. This belief is a trap. It is a recipe for a life spent in service to the chaos of others, a life where your own well-being is constantly sacrificed at the altar of someone else's dysfunction. You cannot love someone into treating you with respect. You cannot rationalize someone into being kind. And you certainly cannot fix a person who does not see themselves as broken. The ancient Stoics were not passive victims. They were warriors of the mind. They understood that the world is full of people who are governed by their own irrational passions, their insecurities, and their disordered desires. They taught that the path to a good life is not found in trying to change these people, but in building an unshakable inner citadel, a fortress of reason and self-respect that their toxicity cannot penetrate. The Stoics offer us a strategic art of war for the soul, a set of brutally honest and foolproof ways to handle the toxic individuals who would otherwise drain the very life from us. By the end of this exploration, you will realize that your peace was always and will always be in your hands. The first and perhaps most misunderstood of these strategies is to forgive but never forget. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful and yet most misinterpreted virtues. Many people mistakenly believe that to forgive someone means you are being weak, that you are naive, or that you are willing to overlook the pain and betrayal they have caused you. But true Stoic forgiveness is none of these things. It is not about excusing someone's destructive behavior or foolishly welcoming them back into your life with open arms so they can hurt you again. Forgiveness is about liberating yourself from the heavy, self-imposed chains of your own resentment. I learned this the hard way many years ago. I had a close friend, let's call him Alex, whom I trusted implicitly. We were inseparable, or so I had thought. One day, I confided in Alex about something deeply personal, a vulnerability I shared with no one else, trusting that he would keep it between us. But about a week later, I discovered that he had not only shared my secret with several other people, but he had twisted the story in a way that painted me in the worst possible light, using my vulnerability as a tool for his own social gain. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. I was furious not just at Alex, but at myself for having been so foolish as to trust him in the first place. That anger stayed with me for months, maybe even for years. It was a hot coal of resentment that I carried in my gut. Every time I saw him or even heard his name mentioned, it felt like the original wound was being ripped open again. I did not realize at the time how much that resentment was weighing me down, how much of my own precious mental energy I was dedicating to hating him. Then, during a particularly low moment, I came across a quote that is often attributed to various sources, but its wisdom is universal. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That single sentence hit me with the force of a physical blow. I had a profound realization. While Alex had moved on with his life, likely not giving me a second thought, I was the one who was still trapped in a prison of my own, making a cycle of anger and recurring hurt. My resentment was not punishing him in the slightest. It was only punishing me. So I made the conscious decision to forgive him. but not in the way most people imagine. I did not call Alex to offer a tearful reconciliation. I did not invite him back into my inner circle. Instead, I forgave him silently in the quiet of my own heart. I made a rational decision to let go of the anger, not for his sake, but for my own peace of mind. But here is the critical part, the part that so many people miss. I did not forget. That betrayal, as painful as it was, taught me an invaluable lesson about the nature of trust, about judging character based on actions rather than words, and about being far more discerning with whom I share my vulnerabilities. Forgiving Alex allowed me to finally move forward without the bitterness that had been poisoning my own life. But remembering what he did ensured that I would never make the same mistake again. It shaped my future decisions and made me a wiser judge of character. Forgiveness is often seen as an act of weakness, but in reality, it is the ultimate act of personal strength. It takes immense courage to consciously release a righteous anger. It takes profound wisdom to understand that forgiveness does not mean giving someone another chance to hurt you. Forgetting, however, is a disservice to your own growth. Forgetting invites the same pain, the same patterns back into your life. Think of forgiveness like healing a scar. You do not keep reopening the wound to feel the pain anew, but you also do not erase the scar. That scar is a reminder not of the pain, but of the lesson it taught you. It is a testament to what you endured and what you learned. The Stoics often emphasize the power of controlling our own emotions, and forgiveness is a prime example of this principle in action. By forgiving, you take control of your own internal narrative. You refuse to allow the toxic actions of another person to continue to dictate your peace. By not forgetting, you protect yourself from falling into the same trap again. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, but the memory of the lesson is the shield you carry with you forever. The second clever way to deal with toxic people is to limit their access to you. Let me be brutally real with you. Some people do not deserve a front row seat in the theater of your life. I do not care if they are family members, lifelong friends, or colleagues you have to see every single day. If someone is consistently toxic, draining, or disrespectful of your boundaries, it is time to downgrade their access. You can call this harsh if you want, but protecting your own peace is not a selfish act. It is an act of survival. I used to be a chronic people pleaser. If someone wanted my time, my energy, or my attention, I gave it to them freely, no questions asked. I would stay on the phone for hours with a friend who only ever called to complain about their own life, completely ignoring the fact that I had my own struggles to deal with. I would bend over backward for people who would not even lift a finger for me in return. Does any of this sound familiar? It hit me one day after yet another emotionally draining conversation with someone who seemed to believe I was their unpaid therapist. I hung up the phone feeling completely exhausted, depleted, and resentful. And I thought to myself, why am I doing this? What am I actually getting out of this relationship? That was the moment I realized that not everyone deserves unrestricted all access to you. Here is where it gets controversial, because limiting access does not always mean a dramatic tear-filled confrontation or cutting someone off completely. Sometimes the most effective way to limit access is to set subtle, almost invisible boundaries that they do not even realize you have put in place until it is too late. For example, that friend who always dumps their problems on you. The next time they call, instead of offering endless solutions and sympathy, try responding with a calm, slightly detached, "Wow, that sounds really tough. What do you think you'll do about it?" Watch how quickly they lose interest when you stop feeding into their negativity and instead place the responsibility for their own problems back onto them. Or take that family member who always criticizes your life choices. You do not have to argue with them or explain yourself into the ground. Just nod, smile, and keep your future plans to yourself. Their disapproval loses all of its power when they do not have the full story to pick apart. I once had a coworker who thrived on office gossip and drama. Every time they would corner me in the break room with a gleeful, "You won't believe what so-and-so did," I would casually reply, "Oh, I'm not really into office drama," and then I would walk away. It was awkward at first, but guess what? They quickly stopped trying to drag me into their nonsense. Limiting access is about recognizing that not everyone deserves a backstage pass to your energy and your emotions. It is about creating conscious layers of access and inner circle for those who uplift, support, and respect you, and a series of outer rings for the energy vampires and the drama merchants. And yes, some people might call you cold or distant for doing this. But you have to ask yourself this critical question: do I want to be liked by everyone, or do I want to be respected by the right people? Think of your life as an exclusive VIP club. You are the bouncer at the velvet rope. Not everyone gets to make the list. The toxic complainers. General admission at best if they are even allowed in the door. The drama queens, they can watch from the parking lot, but the people who truly value you, who respect your time and your energy, who uplift you and celebrate your successes. They are in the VIP lounge with you sipping the good stuff. Limiting access is not about being cruel, it is about being smart. Your time, your attention, and your emotional energy are your most limited and valuable resources. Do not waste them on people who do not appreciate them. Because here is the beautiful truth. When you start valuing yourself enough to set these boundaries, the right people will value you even more, and the wrong ones will either shape up or they will show themselves out. Either way, it is a win-win for you. Sometimes the best way to handle a toxic person is to simply refuse to take them seriously. Toxic people thrive on tension. They feed on drama, on arguments, and on conflict. But what happens when you refuse to give them the negative reaction they so desperately crave? What happens when instead of arguing back or getting defensive, you simply crack a joke, smile, or play along, just enough to completely deflate their ego? It is like popping a balloon. Suddenly, their grand dramatic performance falls completely flat. The third clever way to deal with toxic people is to use humor to disarm them. I remember a particularly toxic coworker. I once had a person who loved to critique everyone and everything. Nothing was ever good enough for this person. Our work, our outfits, even the way we drank our coffee. One day, they decided to comment on my admittedly unorganized desk in front of a group of our colleagues. "Wow," they sneered, "your desk looks like a tornado hit it." How do you even find anything in this mess? Instead of taking offense or launching into a defense of my organizational methods, I simply shrugged, smiled, and said, "You're absolutely right. This is my creative chaos. Albert Einstein's desk was messier than mine. So clearly, I'm on the right track for genius." The group laughed, and their attempt to publicly embarrass me completely backfired. After that, they never bothered me about my desk again. Using humor disarms toxic people for a few key reasons. First, it takes all the power away from their words. When you can laugh at their insults or their thinly veiled jabs, you are demonstrating to them and to everyone else that their attempts to hurt you are not working. Second, it completely changes the energy of the interaction. Toxic people want to create a negative, heavy atmosphere. Humor brings in levity, wit, and unpredictability, which they often cannot handle. Third, it puts you firmly in control. By staying calm, witty, and unbothered, you are showing that you are unshakable, which can frustrate them more than any direct confrontation ever could. But here is the key: your humor has to be light and clever, not aggressive or cutting. If your joke comes across as sarcastic or mean, it could escalate the situation and drag you down to their level. The goal is to make their negativity look ridiculous without you becoming ridiculous in the process. For instance, if someone keeps interrupting you in a meeting, you could say with a smile, "Wow, I didn't realize we were playing tag team speaking today. Your turn's over though, it's mine now." It is firm, but it is funny, and it gets the point across without creating unnecessary conflict. Humor also works wonders when toxic people try to guilt trip you. If someone says with a dramatic sigh, "Oh, I guess you're just too busy to care about me these days," you can respond with a playful, "You're on to me. I've been auditioning for the role of terrible friend, and it looks like I'm nailing it." It completely deflates their manipulative tactic while keeping things light. Using humor does not mean you are dismissing the seriousness of their toxicity. It means you are refusing to let them drag you into their negative world. It is a subtle but powerful way of asserting your strength, proving that you are unbothered by their desperate attempts to control or belittle you. Walking away from a toxic person is one of the hardest yet most liberating decisions you will ever make. It is not just about leaving a bad situation. It is about reclaiming your peace, your time, and your energy. But here is the kicker: it is not always a dramatic, sudden exit. Sometimes knowing when to walk away is about the quiet, repeated choice to put yourself first over and over again until their chaos no longer has a hold on you. Toxic people are experts at convincing you to stay. They will offer tearful apologies, they will promise that they will change, or they will guilt trip you with lines like, "If you leave, you're just giving up on me." And let's be honest, there is always a small part of you that wonders if walking away makes you the bad person. But here is the hard truth: staying in a relationship, whether it is a friendship, a romantic connection, or a family tie that consistently drains you, is not a noble act. It is an act of self-destruction. I once had a close friend who was the life of every party, but a complete nightmare in private. Every single conversation revolved around their problems, their needs, and their self-created drama. If I ever tried to talk about my own struggles, they would either dismiss them or immediately turn it into a competition. "Oh, you had a bad day." Let me tell you about my bad day. At first, I made excuses for them. "They're just going through a lot," I would tell myself. "They don't mean it." But as the months turned into years, I realized that I was pouring every ounce of my emotional energy into this relationship and getting absolutely nothing back. The breaking point came during a major crisis in my own life. When I truly needed them, when I reached out for support, their response was a curt, "That sounds rough, but I'm dealing with my own stuff right now." It was in that moment that it finally hit me. They were not toxic because they were malicious. They were toxic because they were simply profoundly incapable of caring about anyone but themselves. I finally decided to walk away. And while it hurt, it also felt like a massive, suffocating weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Walking away does not always mean cutting someone off completely, especially if it is a family member or a coworker. Sometimes walking away looks like reducing contact. You stop answering every single call. You stop responding to every text immediately. You let them slowly fade into the background of your life. It can also look like setting firm boundaries, saying things like, "I'm not available to talk about this," or "I don't think I can help you with that anymore," are firm but respectful ways to emotionally step back. It can also look like emotionally detaching. Even if you have to see them or speak to them occasionally, you make a conscious decision to stop letting their opinions or their behavior affect your inner peace. The controversial part of this is that sometimes walking away means leaving people that society expects you to stay connected to, like family. The idea that you must endure toxic relatives simply because you share blood is an outdated and harmful concept. Blood ties do not give someone a free pass to abuse, manipulate, or drain you. Walking away does not mean you hate them. It means you are choosing to protect yourself. The deeper message here is that walking away is not an act of anger. It is an act of love. Love for yourself, for your well-being, and for the life you want to live. It is you saying, "I deserve relationships that uplift me, not ones that tear me down." And when you finally do walk away, you will realize something powerful. You are not just walking away from them, you are walking toward a healthier, happier, and more peaceful version of yourself. Dealing with toxic individuals can often feel like trying to swim with heavy weights tied to your ankles. You are constantly being dragged down by their negativity, their manipulation, or their drama. The single best antidote to this is to surround yourself with people who lift you up. Uplifting people do not just bring positivity into your life. They act as a powerful reminder of your own worth. They encourage your growth, and they help you to keep the toxic energy of others at bay. Here is a simple truth: your environment shapes you. If you spend most of your time with toxic people, you will inevitably begin to absorb some of their habits, their attitudes, or even their cynical worldview. But when you consciously choose to surround yourself with people who genuinely want the best for you, something magical happens. You start to see the best in yourself. Think about it. Have you ever had a friend who makes you feel lighter and more energized after you have spent time with them? Someone who listens without judgment, who celebrates your wins without a trace of jealousy, and who challenges you in a way that feels empowering rather than condescending. Those are the uplifting people you need to actively seek out and cultivate relationships with. For me, there was a period in my life when I felt stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships. One day, I met a new colleague who was refreshingly positive and sincere. They would say things like, "You're really good at this. Why don't you take the lead?" Or, "You handled that difficult situation so well." Their encouragement was so genuine and so unexpected that it almost shocked me. Over time, I realized that I had become so accustomed to the backhanded compliments and subtle jabs from the toxic people in my life that I did not even know what real, unadulterated support felt like. Spending more time with this new colleague and with other people like them showed me what I had been missing. They did not try to compete with me to undermine me or to manipulate me. Instead, they inspired me to believe in myself and to set higher standards for the relationships I allowed into my life. Here is how you can begin to consciously surround yourself with uplifting people. First, identify your tribe. Look for the people in your life or new acquaintances who inspire, encourage, and energize you. Second, invest in quality connections. Instead of trying to maintain a large superficial circle of friends, focus your energy on deepening your bonds with a few genuinely uplifting and virtuous people. And third, reciprocate that positivity. Relationships are a two-way street. Be the kind of uplifting, supportive person that you yourself want to have in your life. Listen to others, support them, and celebrate their successes authentically. The controversial part of this strategy is that it might mean consciously cutting ties or severely limiting contact with people who do not uplift you, even if they have been in your life for many years. Loyalty is a beautiful trait, but it is not worth sacrificing your peace of mind for someone who consistently drains you. The deeper message is this: uplifting people do not just make you feel good. They remind you that life is meant to be shared with those who see the best in you. They help you to grow into the version of yourself you are meant to be simply by believing in you and holding space for your potential. Toxic people will try to convince you that everyone is just as selfish, bitter, or manipulative as they are. But uplifting people show you a different, more beautiful truth. They remind you that kindness, respect, and genuine connection still exist. And once you experience that, you will wonder why you ever settled for anything less. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They are like emotional puppeteers, constantly pulling strings to manipulate, to provoke, or to control you. Their games can be subtle, like guilt-tripping you into doing something you do not want to do, or they can be outright explosive, like stirring up drama just to make themselves the center of attention. The only way to win this game is to stop playing. You must refuse to engage. Here is the thing: toxic individuals are experts at baiting you. They will say things that are perfectly designed to push your buttons, or they will create situations where you feel as though you have no choice but to respond. But the moment you take that bait, the moment you react emotionally, they have won. You are now on their turf, playing by their rules. By refusing to engage, you take away all of their power, and you leave them spinning alone in their own self-created chaos. I remember dealing with a particularly toxic family member who loved to stir up arguments at every single family gathering. They would throw out passive-aggressive comments knowing exactly who they were aimed at. "It must be nice to have so much free time," they might say. "Some of us actually have to work hard." At first, I would try to explain myself or to defend my choices, but I quickly learned that this only made things worse. They would twist my words, escalate the argument, and somehow, by the end of it, make me out to be the bad guy. One day, I decided to stop playing their game. When they made another one of their snide remarks, I just smiled politely and said, "You're entitled to your opinion." And then I immediately changed the subject. They tried again a few minutes later, but I remained calm and completely disengaged. You could literally see the frustration on their face. They were not getting the reaction they wanted. Over time, they stopped targeting me because I had refused to give them what they craved, my drama. Refusing to engage is not about being passive. It is about being strategic. First, you must learn to recognize the bait. Pay attention to their patterns. What triggers you, and how do they try to provoke you? Once you can spot their tactics, you can prepare to respond differently. Second, you must stay calm. Toxic people want an emotional reaction. You must keep your composure and not let their antics dictate your mood. Third, you can respond minimally or not at all. Sometimes silence is your best weapon. At other times, a neutral, non-committal response like, "That's interesting," or "I see," is enough to shut them down completely. Finally, you must set firm boundaries. Make it clear that you will not entertain their behavior. Saying, "I'm not going to argue about this," or "Let's talk when you're ready to have a productive conversation," sets a clear limit. The controversial part of this is that refusing to engage does not mean being a doormat. It means choosing not to fight battles that are not worth your energy. Toxic people may accuse you of being cold, dismissive, or even cowardly, but that is just another one of their games, another attempt to pull you back in. Remember, their opinion of you does not define you. The deeper message here is about control your control. By refusing to engage, you are reminding yourself that you do not owe anyone your energy, especially not someone who thrives on negativity. You are setting the terms for how you want to interact with the world, not letting someone else dictate them. Life is too short to be drawn into pointless arguments or toxic mind games. When you step back and refuse to engage, you are not running away. You are rising above. Toxic people love to derail you. They thrive on distraction, on pulling you into their chaos, their drama, or their petty schemes. It is almost as if their primary mission in life is to make their problems your problems. But when you are deeply and unshakably focused on your own purpose, your goals, your values, and the life you are trying to build, their noise begins to fade into the background. The seventh clever way to deal with toxic people is to stay relentlessly focused on your own purpose. This is not just a defense, it is a powerful offensive move. Here is the thing about toxic people: they want you to lose sight of yourself. They will criticize your ambitions, they will downplay your achievements, or they will demand your attention at the worst possible times. Why? Because a focused person is a direct threat to their sense of control. If you are too busy growing, thriving, or chasing your own dreams, you will not have the time or the patience for their nonsense. I once worked with a colleague who was the textbook definition of toxic. They would gossip about everyone, they would create unnecessary drama between team members, and they would constantly try to drag others into their mess. At first, I got caught up in it. I would waste hours of my day listening to their complaints or defending myself against their petty jabs. But then I had a realization: every single minute I spent on their nonsense was a minute I was not spending on my work, on my goals, or on my own peace of mind. So I made a conscious decision. I would focus on what truly mattered to me, and I would let their chaos play out without me as a cast member. I started setting firm boundaries. I'm really busy right now, I can't get into this. I avoided their unnecessary conversations, and I poured all of my reclaimed energy into excelling at my own tasks. The more I stayed focused, the less power they had over me. And the best part, my focus and my refusal to engage in the drama inspired other team members to do the same, leaving the toxic individual with fewer and fewer people to manipulate. Here is how you can stay focused on your purpose even when you are surrounded by toxicity. First, you must clarify your goals. Write down what you are working toward and remind yourself daily why it matters. Keeping your purpose front and center will make the toxic distractions seem much less significant. Second, you must create a mental shield. Treat the toxic people in your environment like background noise. Acknowledge their presence if you must, but do not let their negativity penetrate your focus. Third, you must learn to say no unapologetically. If their demands do not align with your goals, do not hesitate to decline. Your time is valuable. Spend it wisely. And finally, you must find your motivators. Surround yourself with people, with books, with habits that remind you of your purpose and that fuel your determination. The controversial part of this is that staying focused on your purpose might mean prioritizing yourself over relationships that do not serve you, even if those relationships are with close friends or family members. Some might accuse you of being selfish. But here is the truth. Focusing on your purpose is not selfish. It is essential. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot achieve your dreams if you are constantly being bogged down by someone else's negativity. The deeper message is this: staying focused on your purpose is not just about ignoring toxic people. It is about honoring yourself. It is a declaration that your time, your energy, and your aspirations are too valuable to be wasted on someone else's drama. Toxic people may try to distract you, but your purpose is your anchor. When you are clear on what you are working toward, their negativity cannot shake you. And as you continue to pursue your goals, something incredible happens. You build a life that is so fulfilling and so grounded that their toxicity becomes completely irrelevant. At that point, you are not just surviving their chaos, you are thriving in spite of it. And that is the ultimate win. Finally, the eighth clever way to deal with toxic people is to avoid gossiping about them. Gossiping about the toxic people in your life might feel deeply satisfying in the moment. It can feel like a harmless way to vent your frustration, to find solidarity with others who have been wronged, or even to get a little bit of revenge. But let's be real, gossip never ends well. It keeps their toxicity alive and active in your own life. It turns you into the very thing you are trying to escape. And worst of all, it gives them free rent in your head. If you truly want to deal with toxic people effectively, you must resist the powerful urge to talk about them behind their backs. Here is the reality. Toxic people are often fueled by attention, even negative attention. When you gossip about them, you are only feeding the very drama that they crave. You become an unintentional participant in their game, keeping their narrative alive. And worse, it creates a toxic cycle where their bad behavior begins to dictate your actions and your conversations. That is the very opposite of taking back your control. I learned this the hard way. At one point in my career, I had a coworker who was notoriously toxic, always stirring up conflict and dragging others down. A few of us who were affected by this person's behavior would vent about them during our lunch breaks, sharing stories about their latest antics. At first, it felt like a form of camaraderie, a bonding experience over a shared enemy. But over time, I began to realize something unsettling. Every conversation we had about them left me feeling more drained, more bitter, and more focused on their negativity. And worse, they somehow inevitably found out about our gossip and used it to paint themselves as the victim, further fueling their own dramatic narrative. From that moment on, I decided to stop engaging in gossip entirely. Instead, I focused on maintaining my professionalism and on addressing any legitimate issues I had with this person directly and constructively when necessary. It was not always easy. There were times when I really wanted to vent, but I noticed a profound shift. By stepping out of the gossip loop, I reclaimed my energy and, more importantly, my own integrity. Here is how you can avoid gossiping about toxic people while still staying sane. First, if you need to release your frustration, do it productively. Talk to someone you truly trust, someone who will not simply fuel the fire like a mentor, a therapist, or a spouse. Second, stick to the facts, not insults. If you must discuss the situation, focus on the behavior and its impact, not on character assassination. Third, redirect the conversation. When others around you start gossiping about the toxic person, gently steer the discussion toward more constructive topics. For example, you can say, "I understand the frustration, but let's focus on how we can handle this situation better." And finally, focus on solutions. Instead of dwelling on their behavior, channel your energy into finding ways to protect your own peace and to move forward. The controversial part of this is that avoiding gossip might make you feel isolated, especially in an environment where venting about others seems like the norm. People might even accuse you of being too nice or passive. But here is the truth. Avoiding gossip is not about being nice. It is about being smart. Gossip chains you to the very toxicity you are trying to escape. Letting it go sets you free. The deeper message is this: by refusing to gossip, you are choosing to break the cycle of negativity. You are proving to yourself and to others that you will not let someone else's bad behavior drag you down to their level. Toxic people thrive on chaos, and gossip is just another form of chaos. By stepping away from the chatter, you starve them of the attention they seek, and you protect your own peace of mind. And in doing so, you demonstrate one of the most powerful forms of self-respect, the ability to rise above even when it is tempting not to. Dealing with toxic people is not about changing them, it is about protecting yourself. You cannot control their behavior, but you can absolutely control how you respond. The truth is, toxic people will always exist. But when you master the art of setting boundaries, staying focused, and refusing to play their games, they will lose their power over you. Remember, your energy is precious. You have dreams to chase, goals to crush, and a life to build. Do not let anyone's negativity distract you from that. Stand your ground. Choose your peace and keep moving forward.